Welcome everyone to a new topic called Linux environment. I'm Manibhushan D'Souza, Assistant Professor at Computer Science Department. Today we are going to begin the first topic on Linux environment, and the topic title for today is Unix operating system an overview. Today we are going to see a brief history of Unix, and then we are going to see the system structure of the Unix. At the end of this video, you must be able to learn about the history of the Unix and study the general feature of the Unix system. In order to understand this chapter properly, you must have some basic knowledge of the operating system. Let's recall what is an operating system. We know that computer is a complex system altogether. There are many things, and we want the computer to perform its task very efficiently. Because there are many tasks are there in the computer, we need something to manage all the resources which are there in the computer. And the operating system is the one that manages all the system resources of the computer. Now, the system resources include its memory, the processes which are running, and all the input output devices which are connected to the system. One of the tasks of the operating system is to manage all the resources efficiently and in a secured manner. Apart from this, operating system also acts as an interface between the users of the computer and the computer hardware. Most of the operating system today provide a user-friendly environment in which user can easily develop their own programs as well as they can execute their programs. Let's look at the history of Unix. Unix history started from the Multics. In 1965, three organizations came together, one of them being Massachusetts Institute of Technology, which is also called as MIT of United States, AT&T Bell Labs, and General Electric Company. One of them was a British company and the other was an United States company. Together, they wanted to develop a time-sharing operating system. Just to recall, what is time-sharing is, in time-sharing, the operating system shares its time among many users. So, if 10 users are connected to your computer, then you are given only a fraction of time to execute your program. Then the operating system switches to the second person and it gives a quanta of time to the user, then switches to the next person. So this is how it goes. Suppose if there are three people are there who are using the operating system. So initially, for a small fraction of time, the operating system will perform the task of the first user. Whether the task is completed or not, after a small amount called as quanta, the operating system switches to the second user and performs the task that is given by the second user. Whether the task is completed or not, after a small amount of time called as quanta, the operating system switches to the next user. So in other words, the total time that is available with the operating system is shared among different users. That's why we say that it is a time sharing. Its time is shared among all the users. The concept may seem very simple, but during that time they wanted to write the programs for a mainframe. I hope you are familiar with the concept of mainframe, and in particular they wanted to write it for GE645, and this is a typical picture of GE645, a kind of machine that was there. Okay, so they called this operating system as Multics. Multics stands for Multiplexed Information and Computing Services. This project took a lot of time because all the three companies were developing, but it didn't pick up to that extent. During the initial stage, the developers had some goals in their mind. They wanted to provide the simultaneous computer access to large number of users. So initially they were planning uh, to a extent of 300 users. So they thought that 300 users can simultaneously use the computer and do their work. They also wanted to have a sufficiently large computation power so that all these large number of users will be able to smoothly carry out their work. Apart from that, they also wanted to have a data storage so that these users data or programs can be stored on these data stores. The next goal that they had when they built the Multics was to allow the users to share their data easily among each other. With this goal, they started their Multics project. As I told you, this project didn't go well for a very long time, and one of the company, that is AT&T Bell Labs, slowly pulled out of this project. They said we will not be supporting, it's not going anywhere. So they came out of that particular project. However, the researchers who were developing this particular operating system, mainly Ken Thompson, Dennis Ritchie, Doug McElroy, and Joe Osana, they decided to redo this work on a smaller scale. So this was the project was originally meant for the mainframe, which was very costlier during that time, and today also we have large servers are costlier, but they wanted to do it for a smaller version, and they took DEC. Okay, one of the manufacturing company. DEC has been taken over by Compaq. Compaq and HP merged together later. So today you see HP as your laptop. Some of you may be having HP laptop, and this is a company that is in joint venture with one other company called as Compaq, and this company is still there. However, this DEC, okay, digital electronic, has been taken over by DEC a longer time. So this is a history. So during that time, DEC was one of the leading manufacturer, and they decided to develop their program to continue working on their old Multics project on this machine, and they called this particular operating system as Unix. It was not called as the Unix that you are familiar today. So Unix stands for Uniplexed Information and Computing Services. This was the time they started working on it. Okay. During this time, all the developers have put a lot of effort. They developed a lot of inner details of that particular operating system. However, they were developing the program using one programming language called as BPCL. BPCL stands for Basic Combined Programming Language, which was developed very early in 1967 by Richard Martins. And this was used for writing the operating system and compiler. This kind of software were developed using this programming language, and they found that this is not very powerful. So Ken Thompson remodeled some of the features of BPCL, and he introduced a new programming language called as B, which is derived from BPCL. This was created after 3 years in 1970. So using B, these people started developing the early version of the Unix operating system in their Bell laboratory. Later, Dennis Ritchie developed C, which is which is a combination of BPCL and the B language. So today you have already studied the C programming language, and some of you may be wondering why that word C has come. So they developed with the it is an extension of B, so it is called as C. So these three people were the great persons behind this. So Richard Martin started BPCL, Ken Thompson developed B, and Dennis Ritchie, you are already familiar. He developed the C programming language. So the Unix was written in C, and in fact, Dennis Ritchie published a research paper in 1974 describing the Unix system in the ACM. This is a research journal where he has published the idea of how the Unix will look like. Many people liked the idea that was proposed by Dennis Ritchie, and this is how the Unix, the base idea of the Unix started. In between, a lot of things happened. They developed a uh, gaming project also in between, but they developed the Unix. However, the AT&T Labs, that's the original company, had an agreement with the federal government. Actually, federal government had given a ruling saying that they cannot sell their OS to the others. So that was a rule that the people had. So today, you know very well, many Chinese apps are being banned. So as the government says, they have to follow. So what these AT&T people did was they gave their Unix operating system to the universities, who said, we liked your idea and we want to develop more on this. We want to add new things to this. So for educational purpose, everything you know very well is for free. So AT&T Lab gave the Unix system to the many university. Whoever said that we are going to use it for our research work and so on, so start using it. We are not going to charge you anything. They gave the Unix operating to them. So parallelly, many universities also started using it, as well as modifying and improving the Unix operating system. In 1977, the Unix started picking up like anything. Almost 125 universities were using the Unix, or they were doing research with the Unix. So Unix became one of the popular OS, not only in the universities. And for those who are not very familiar with the AT&T, AT&T's main business is telecommunication, like how you have Jio and Airtel. During that time, AT&T in United States was a telecommunication company. So the Unix was used in the telephone company for developing programs, as well as for network transaction and all the operation services in the real time. So that 1977, at the time of 1977, Unix was there not only in the university, but was also functioning in telephone companies. Okay. In 1977 also was a landmark wherein the Unix system, which was mainly meant for PDP, was actually ported in the sense was transferred to the other non-PDP machine. So olden days the Unix was only working on PDP. It was not working in the other computers. If you, well, just to give you an analogy, if you really didn't get it, you have your Android phone, and just to say that WhatsApp was working only on Android phone. This is just an analogy. So WhatsApp was working only on the Android phone, and now they made it work on the iPhone. So kind of that kind of thing. So Unix was working in PDP, and they made it work on Interdata 8 bar 32. So, however, this was done, it is not something great. This was done without much of an effort. There was not much change to the code that was done because it was written in the programming language C. C is highly portable. So C compilers were available for many other machines. So they were able to easily port the Unix from the PDP to the non-PDP machine. With the advent of microprocessor, if you notice over here, 19 again, I am not very sure you are familiar with the uh, microprocessor story. In 1974, Intel introduced its first microprocessor. Again, you are familiar, I am not very sure about it. So the advent of microprocessor changed the face of the computer. The computers were very large, bulky machine in olden days. With the microprocessor, they became very small, like this. So very very small machines all together, and they became cheap. So many people started porting this Unix. It was very easy to port the Unix from one system to the other system. So they ported Unix to a new machine. Apart from that, when they, because many people were using Unix, they made a lot of changes to the Unix so that it can have many functionalities. So what happened is one university has had one Unix which had some functionality. Other university had one more Unix which had some different functionality which was not there in that was provided by the previous one. And maybe somebody else had one more Unix which had some functionalities again. Some of them may be common, some of them are different. So this is what happened. So there were several variants of the basic system. So if you buy Unix from this vendor, you get Unix some functionality. If you buy it from the other, you get something else. This is same as if you buy a car from Maruti, you get some functionality. If you buy a car from Honda or Toyota, you get some functionality. The basic is it's a car. Same thing. It's an operating system. It had the same thing. It was there to manage the resources of the operating system. However, the utilities that were there in the operating system and the few of the structures were different in different Unix environment. So from 1997 to 1982, the Bell Laboratory, what it did was it took many variants, a lot of changes. Different people had added different things to the Unix. So we had a Unix, uh, so-called Unix with some functionality. Again, Unix with some other functionality. Again, Unix with some other functionality. So what they did was they started integrating different functionalities into one system. Okay, and this was commercially given out as Unix System 3, which had all the variants, almost all the variants. Uh, Good things about, so-called the good things about all these systems were put together in Unix System 3. Later, they upgraded it to Unix 4, Unix 5, and the last one to come out is the Unix System 5. This was the one that was the last one. And in 1983, AT&T said that we are officially selling this, and we will give the support. Anybody who buys Unix System 5, we will give the official support. In other words, they will provide the services. If it is not working, they will correct the problem. So how you get the support from Microsoft? If you have Microsoft Windows or Microsoft Office, the licensed version, and if you have some trouble, you can directly call Microsoft people, and they will give you a product support. So this was the idea. However, many universities had their own Unix. In one particular university, that is University of California in Berkeley, decided to pull out its own operating system, and it is called as BSD, Berkeley Software Distribution, BSD Unix, which was famous during that time. So this is how the Unix history started. There were two main variants. One was the Unix System 5, the other one was BSD. So if you look at the time span 1970 onwards, so Bell Laboratory started it, and you have one primary distribution, that is BSD. From the BSD, many versions came. One version was the Sun Solaris. Sun Microsystem, you are familiar, was famous for its Java. The Microsoft, the company that you are famous for its Windows operating system. Olden days, it started the Unix variant called as Xenix. It was one of the operating system that Microsoft was selling. There was the other variant of BSD. This was the BSD, that is Berkeley Software Distribution from the University of California. The one operating system was the next step, which was again derived from BSD. Why this next step is very important is the kernel of this next step, that is the Darwin, was taken up by Macintosh, and they started the Mac OS. So your Apple machine that you are using, Mac OS, is actually derived from the Unix. Its core is Darwin, which is a Unix altogether. So you have the Unix OS. If you look at the System 5 variants, the HP started its own Unix called as UX. The IBM started its own variant of Unix called as AIX for IBM, and there was a Unixware, which was also famous, and you have the SCO Unix, that is Santa Cruz operating system. Also the STI, which is famous for those who have studied about the graphics. You are familiar with that company STI. It started its IRIX. If you notice them, all of them are derived from the Unix. So if you look at the world today, the very best known operating systems are all derived from the Unix. But that's not the end of it. The GNU project started in around 8083 and so on. From this, Linus Torvald derived Linux, which is again a variant of Unix. So if you notice, all the Linux operating system that you have, the core of it is Unix. That's why in the lab, when you study about the operating system, most of them are using Linux, because Linux had all the functionality of Unix. Now why this Linux is very why I'm stressing on it is, your Android that you are using, Android OS, is derived from the Linux. So Linux itself is derived from the Unix. So your Android is in turn a Unix operating system. Your Mac OS that you are using, Apple OS, iOS or anything, that is again derived from Unix. So Unix is a very powerful and heavily used operating system. That is why we are supposed to study about the Unix operating system. Now let's look at some of the general overview of this operating system. The Unix system is written in high level language. In particular, Unix was written using C programming language. That is why the code is much easier to read, understand and change. Unlike the old operating systems which were written using assembly programming language and the other programming language which are very difficult to understand. So this particular programming language, because C was involved in developing the program, it was easy to make modification to this, as well as it was easy to move the operating system from one type of machine to the other type of machine. Even though they were using C program, it was slightly slower as compared to the assembly level language, but that is okay because it's easier to work with the high level language. Next comes is the user interface. Now today if you look at your Android, which is much easier to use. Now if you go back to the Linux operating system, they have the GUI which is easier to use. Now if you go back to the old Unix environment, there are many shells which are available. So if you're familiar with the Unix, you know what I'm talking about. If you're not very familiar, I'll talk about it later. So the shells provide a interactive way in which you can issue a command to the operating system and get the work done. So the Unix with this simpler user interface, you can get all the services that are provided by the Unix. Next comes is the file system. The file system in Unix is hierarchical. That means it is a tree structure. Again, I'm not very familiar with the your knowledge about the tree structure. Tree starts with the root. Then you have the first level. Then you can have the second level. So this kind of structure. Again, you can have one more level. So this kind of structure is called as a tree structure. Now this is a very efficient way of storing the information. We will look at that file system later in our course. Next one is it has a consistent file format, so that it is easier to write an application that makes that can read the data from the programs and read and write the data that was created by the other programs. The other features of the Unix include it has a simple and consistent interface to the peripheral device. So if you are a hardware manufacturer, so like suppose if you want to create a mouse, a hardware mouse or a keyboard, if if a company is manufacturing something, a hardware like keyboard, mouse or a hard disk or anything, to interface with the Unix, it is very simple. So it provides a simple consistent interface so that the devices can easily interact with the operating system. The base idea of the Unix was to be used by many users. So it's a multi-user operating system, as well as it supports more than one microprocessor. So it supports many users simultaneously, as well as it can work on more than one processor. Today, the microprocessor that you buy, that is i3, i5, i7 or Ryzen or any other microprocessor itself has many processing units. So there are 2 cores, there are 4 core microprocessor. So this, but the microprocessor is a single unit. What the Unix is doing is it can work on more than one microprocessor. So you might have seen some motherboards, that have more than one microprocessor inside it. I am not talking about the GPUs, I am talking about CPUs. It is a CPU, graphical processor unit, not the graphical processor unit. Not, it is not your NVIDIA card or any other graphics card. I'm not talking about that. That is also a microprocessor, but it is meant only for graphics enhancement. This is about the CPUs. There can be more than one CPU, and the Unix system is going to work on them. What's the advantage is many users can execute several programs simultaneously because there are more than one microprocessor. Many users can simultaneously use it. The other good thing about the Unix environment is, as a user, you don't need to know about how the machine is really working. Now this is very important thing. That is the reason today everybody is using Android phone or iPhone or any other phone. They don't need to bother about how it really works. So today if you talk, because of this lockdown, if you talk to anybody, everybody is a computer expert today. They are expert because they know how to use a software. They don't know how that software really works. They don't know the architecture of the machine. Olden days, if you are a computer savvy, then you must know all of these things. It is not just using the software, it is how the software is going to run and how the system is built up. Everything has to be known. Then only they call you as a computer a professional. So because the Unix hides all these machine related details, it is easier for us to write a program. So you wrote a program in C and you called printf, which was producing output on the screen. You said scanf, which was reading from the keyboard, but you never realized that the same scanf is reading from different type of keyboard. Same printf is producing the output on different types of monitors. How is it possible? It is not a magic. The printf must know what is the device on which the output has to be shown. This detail is hidden from your printf function, and that is the advantage of having an operating system altogether. Now let's look at the system structure of the Unix.
Unix has a layered architecture. We can see that at the center of the Unix architecture, we have the hardware that performs the real task. This hardware is surrounded by one layer called as kernel. Kernel is the core of the operating system. It contains important functions such as memory management, process management, and the file system. So all the services that are performed by the operating system is indeed done by the kernel. So the kernel interacts with the hardware and performs the required work. Kernel is surrounded by yet another layer. These are the set of utility programs that help us to perform the needful things in the operating system. These programs interact with the kernel using a set of fixed functions called as system calls. So system call is identical to that of a C function. So you are familiar with the C programs, how we write the C functions. So there are many functions which are available within the kernel. Whenever a program wants to interact with the kernel, it calls the required system function, or it makes a system call that is taken up by the kernel. The kernel will perform the needful things and then return the result back to the called program. Here you must understand one of the important program that we usually use is a shell. Shell is an interface wherein, as a user, we can type some commands to the shell. So shell will interpret our command and then make an appropriate call to the kernel. So the kernel in turn will make a interaction with the hardware and then performs a needful thing, the result of which is written back to the shell. The shell in turn return the result back to the user. So in general, whenever we interact with the Unix system, so we can interact using the commands. The commands are the fixed type of words that we are supposed to type to perform the required thing. For example, you can notice over here, you have one command called as who, which helps us to find out who are the other persons who have logged on to the Unix system. In the same way, we have VI, which is a visual editor that helps us to edit our script or our program. We also have some function called as word count that help us to perform count the number of words. So these are all the programs which are available. You notice that they are kept in a separate layer over here. The reason is they are generally available with the Unix system, whereas most of us have written a C program, and to compile the C program you might have used the C compiler. And when you compile your C program, you know that you are going to get a output program in the form of a.out, which when executed will perform the required action, whatever that is specified in the program. So you notice over here, the operating system may consist of many commands. Okay. Apart from there, it may also many commands, or I can say many programs, which are generally called as utility programs or the command programs which are there. Apart from that, it may also contain some other programs which are created by us. For example, you might also created a program to sort 10 numbers or sort n numbers, to find the Fibonacci series, or maybe to find the greatest among 3 numbers, anything of that type. So you have created your own programs. They may also be there with the Unix system. Finally, you will notice that there are many other applications program, like your database program or a web server or some other type, maybe network utilities, which are used for performing some specific task. So this is the general structure of the Unix architecture. Let me summarize it. So what we have in the Unix system is we have the hardware that really performs the required work. Hardware is surrounded by the kernel, which is a core of the operating system that performs the important tasks such as memory management, file management, process management, and so on and so forth. Then we have a shell that is used to interact with the operating system. So we type the command in the shell. Shell in turn interact with the kernel by making an appropriate system call. The kernel in turn interacts with the hardware to perform the required task. there are many different types of shells are there in the Unix. So for example, you can get a shell called as bash shell, okay, which is common in Linux. We can have C shell, or we can have corn shell, Z shell, and so on and so forth. So there are many types of shells are there. Now, what do I mean by saying different types of shells are there? So you know that there are many different. You know that what is a car? So you know, car has 4 tires and maybe a steering, headlight, and so on and so forth. But there are many different types of cars are there. So one car is different from the other car. In the same way, there are many shells are there. One shell is different from the other shell. Each shell has its own uniqueness or its own shortfall, which can be overtaken by the other shells. Okay. Apart from this, the Unix architecture consists of other applications program which are given by the other third party, which may be there, which may not be there in all the system, which help us to perform the required task. So let us quickly recall the whatever we have studied. So according to us, what is a Unix? So we know very well Unix is a operating system. Let's go to the second question. Unix is mainly written using which programming language? We know that Unix is written using a programming language called as C. So you are already studied this C programming language, and the Unix is written, most of the Unix are written using C programming. Okay. Programs interact with the kernel by invoking a set of dash. We know very well whenever a programs want to interact with the kernel, they use the system calls to interact with the kernel. Let's look at the next question. The layer that interact with the hardware of a Unix system is called as, we know very well, to interact with the hardware, kernel is used. So the kernel is the one that interacts with the hardware. So kernel is it is also called as the core of the operating system. It performs the basic required task of the operating system. File structure of the Unix system is hierarchical. So we arrange the content in the Unix system in a hierarchical directory. That's all in this session. To know more about the Unix system, you can refer this particular book, The Design of the Unix Operating System by Maurice J. Batt. This book is also available in the library. Please do refer this book. Thank you for your interest. We will meet again in the second session.